Hi, my name is Daphne, and it is windy out here today, but the sun is out, and so I'm gonna try to do this video so that you guys can hear me because it is very windy. But it's gorgeous. I've actually been sitting out here just enjoying the sun when the sun comes out. And I've also been updating the, I call it a greenhouse, but it's basically me wrapping plastic around a raised bed greenhouse. So, because I already moved out my salad greens, they needed to come out. The temperatures in the house were apparently too warm, and it looked like they were attempting to try to bolt, and we're just not gonna have that. So, I already moved out the salad greens. I'm gonna show you guys that. I'm going to show you guys the setup for the raised bed, and then also there are some things in the garden space that are actually blooming a little. It's only the end of March, but I want to show you guys how the garden looks at the end of March. And then we also have some seedlings in the house. I had to do a couple of things different with the tomatoes and the peppers, and there was a few things that I learned, and I'm doing a little bit different, so I want to show you guys that in the house. I also did start some seeds, so I started my pea seeds in the house. Thought about direct sowing those, but we have squirrels digging, and I don't want them to inadvertently dig up my peas before they even get a chance to sprout, or the birds, because they're making their nests now. So I have those in the house, and then we also started our okra, some sunflowers, and our collards, which actually were not scheduled to be started until April, but I needed to plant something. So I have those in the house. So I'll show you around the garden space, and yeah, just take a walk in the beautiful weather. It is gorgeous. Even with the wind, it's still relatively amazing. So I'm going to show you guys around and show you what the garden looks like late March, and the update on the seedlings as well. So let's go. Alright, so here is the greenhouse. It just has one layer, well, maybe about 2 layers of plastic over it. Probably would do 3, but I don't want the plants to bolt in here. And then let me take the plastic off so I can show you guys how it looks on the inside. It's a makeshift greenhouse. I already have a roof on top of it. I just put the plastic directly over it using a lot of Scotch tape and a string at the bottom and some rocks that were already on the property. In here, it's roughly about, what's that thermometer say? I think it says about 80 degrees, just with the plastic. And the humidity level is right around 65. In here we have our bok choy. Now what happened was I by mistake oh my god, look at that, there's a whole tunnel in here. By mistake I actually brought out some of my lettuce leaf basil, and we had a temperature drop to 30 degrees at one night, and obviously it killed those. The dinosaur kale looks to be going through some things as well, but it might not act, it might make a recovery, I'm not sure. But everything else looks to be adjusting to the adjusting just fine to the new environment. So we have our purple bok choy, which actually looks way better than it did in the house. We have our arugula, which looks pretty good. And then here we have some dinosaur kale. I don't know if it's gonna make it or not, hopefully. And I actually watered these as well. No fertilizer, just regular water. We have our Merlot, which appears to be doing amazing. We also have some tatsoi here, which also has a little bit of fertilizer burn. This actually is frost damage here. I had to reinforce the doors, to reinforce the doorways as well as the plastic, because it was letting a lot of air in. But they've adjusted pretty well to the climate. I also have some Paris Island lettuce here, which actually looks to be doing better than it did in the house. This was the one I was concerned about. It looks like it's trying to elongate, but the rest of them look fine. I only need 3, so if I give 4 to survive, that'll be perfect. And then we have our May Queen lettuce over here, a small, tiny little scarlet kale, and then we also have some Mizuna and some dinosaur kale, which looks to be holding on for its life. But They are adjusting. They've only been outside for about 3 days, and the temperatures at night were pretty low. They're still alive. They're still doing well, with the exception of the lettuce leaf basil. And we'll just hope that as they acclimate to the temperatures out here, and as we do start to go a little higher up in temps, that they'll bounce back. And then inside of here, the alliums have come up, as well as a lot of the yarrow. So we do have some yarrow leaf, which is great because I didn't actually save any for winter teas, so this is perfect. I've literally just been coming outside and like breaking up a few for teas. I need to come out here and also clean this area up, but the birds are actually building their nests, so I don't want to disturb anything too quickly. But outside of the yarrow, we do have coming up some bunching onions right here. We have some mugwort slowly starting to come in here as well, as long with some healthy dandelions, but I'll pull that out root and all. And then we do have some bunching onions coming in here as well, and on that other side. So all of the alliums are coming back. Don't have to buy any more of those, which are great. Mugwort, like that. We also have another beautifully healthy patch of yarrow here coming up, and nothing else so far, but I wouldn't expect that. It's still March, and you know, the temperatures are kind of fluctuating. But we do have some very healthy stinging nettle coming in as well, so I do want to clean this area up to welcome that in. Get over that life. Even if the beds are empty, it's still beautiful. And then let me show you this elderberry mess over here. So I forgot to actually trim these down, and so they are blooming already. I thought I had a little more time. Now each one of these things are not actually leaves, they are going to be stems, and so right now it's already probably at 7 to 8 feet, and it's threatening to go higher than that. And I don't want to clip these now because I'm scared that they'll get a blight, because like the stems are active, like the roots, it's starting to wake up, and I don't think it's healthy to prune a tree. I don't think it's healthy to prune a tree when it's actually in bloom, and that sucks. These woke up very early. I also did finally unwrap the trees, and I kind of think that I did something wrong, and I'm not exactly sure if this is going to come back. I mean, it's moist now a little, but this was bone dry when I unwrapped it. I wrapped the entire thing because I didn't want that to freeze, but in wrapping everything, it didn't get the rain and it didn't get the moisture that it would have needed, and so I'm wondering if I actually inadvertently killed this plant. I did cut it down so that it wouldn't go so high up. I am hoping that it does wake. The limbs don't look too crispy. I'm hoping it will wake up at some point. My poor persimmon tree that gave me 4 fruit last year, and it's in a tiniest little container that I do need to cut it out of. I'm just gonna probably like invest in some wood and just create a raised bed here, and I'm literally gonna have to cut her out of that container, which is such a waste because it's a nice container. The fig here, I'm actually wondering if it's alive as well for the same reason. I wrapped it in old sheets and plastic, and I didn't leave a space to allow for any moisture to get in here, and I didn't water it. And so a lot of these branches are really, like, they're dry. So I'm not exactly sure if this plant is alive. If it's not, I'll just take this whole thing out and use it as like a roots bed, whether I put like carrots in here, or I can grow my turnips in here, so that'll be another good space to do that in. But hopefully they're alive and well. But I probably won't know that yet for another month or so. Alright, so here are the indoor plants right now. They actually will not be going outside until mid-May, or after Mother's Day. But we do have our tomatoes, which are actually bouncing back from me just doing stuff when they were actually perfectly content to be left alone. We have our Cherokee Purples over here. A lot of Cherokee Purples, only need about 3. So I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of them. But after fertilizer mishaps and watering mishaps and up potting way too early, they are actually bouncing back by literally just being left alone. So I up potted them into containers that have more drainage at the bottom. And I watered them deeply, and I'm just letting them completely bone dry out before I decide to add more water. And I've also decided to completely stop fertilizing unless they absolutely need it, and that'll only be closer to May if I do it at all. Here are my peppers, which are also bouncing back from fertilizer mishaps, up potting way too soon, and just overdoing it on the water. Glad I learned before like anything significant happened, but they are actually starting to bounce back, thankfully. There. And then we do have some more peppers, which actually were later to come up, so these are only about 2 weeks old. There's a mystery tomato in the back, and then we do have a Chinese eggplant. One of them back here, and then 2 more just randomly popped up when the soil completely dried out. So I've learned my lesson about heating pads with seedlings as well, with like tiny little, like when they just germinate, they don't need as much water, they don't need as much heat. Learn my lesson on that. And then here is our basil. Completely killed all of the lettuce leaf basil just by putting them outside way too early. That was a mistake. Some of them are recovering from fertilizer burn, which is what you see here, if it will focus. And actually, I think this one might actually be a little too close to the light, so it's curling up just a little. But for the most part, I've stopped watering these as well. And I actually pinched the tops. And I don't know if it'll show, but they are actually starting to grow some more leaves. And they are very, very healthy now. So tons of basil. It's cinnamon basil here, which is a little longer. They're not stretching more so to the light. They're just tall plants. This is the Genevieve basil here, and then we have the Sam Queen, the basil Sam Queen Thai basil here. And they're doing phenomenal. Very happy with the basil so far, and they'll be even better when they get outside. Here we have a sea of chamomile. Literally was not my not my purpose, or I literally did not intend on growing so much basil, but I have enough, and they're relatively healthy. The yellowing actually is a nitrogen deficiency. It is fertilizer overkill. I almost killed these plants. So once I actually laid off of the fertilizer and just watered them with regular water, all of the green started to come back. And then they're also starting to grow roots as well. Some of these were up potted from Soho cups, which don't have enough drainage, so I'm going to have to fix that for next season. But their roots were deteriorating in here rapidly, and it would actually really, it just looked like fertilizer burn, even in the roots. But I up potted these or down potted these to smaller containers, and I actually checked the roots about 2 days ago, and they look white and they look healthy. So yeah, just regular water and just putting them in containers that have way more drainage than the Soho cups is doing amazing. And some of these, the ones in the front row actually got up potted sooner, but some of these actually have some roots coming out of them now. And I do know for sure that that chamomile actually does need to be watered. So these will be due for water in about 2 days. And then we do have our marigolds, which actually were up potted way too early. They could have actually withstood being inside of the strawberry containers for at least another week or 2. But up potted these, and they're doing amazing, facing the sun. So there'll be a sea of just marigolds, which is beautiful. And then over here we have our zinnias, which are starting to bounce back from fertilizer burn and just way too much water. Everything basically is recuperating from me adding fertilizer when it was not necessary. It's not all of the time when plants are yellowing do they require fertilizer. Sometimes you're overwatering them and the roots are deteriorating. And when the roots go, they can't absorb any nutrients. So avoid fertilizing and just make sure that you're not overwatering, because sometimes it'll take care of the differentiation in color if you just stop watering and let the containers dry out. And then also up potting too soon. So a plant this size should have actually stayed within the germinating container until it developed a healthier root base. Instead, I up potted, and the roots were actually trying to fill up this entire container, and then I kept watering. So it was killing off the roots, which were actually overexerting themselves trying to fill up the container. and the plant was way too small. So I know in the future, sometimes a discoloration is not not necessarily a fertilizer issue. It is a you are doing too much issue. Back off. So I've learned. But they're now in the container, so I'm actually going to leave them alone. None of these plants are going to be up potted until they go outside. And hopefully that corrects the issue. So we have our tomatoes and our peppers at the top. And then we have our basil, chamomile, marigolds, zinnias, and calendula in the back. And then at the bottom were ones I did not want to show anybody, but you live and you learn, right? So these were the plants that actually took the biggest hit from the fertilizer. These zinnias actually did get hit with fertilizer burn, but what was the main issue with them was that I actually left them in the germinating containers way too long, and they were sitting in water. So they're recovering. They're actually recovering pretty well. Then we have some of our herbs that didn't do so well with germination just because they were on heating mats, and that wasn't a requirement for a lot of the herbs, so they suffered from that. And then a lot of the white sage is actually recovering from, literally from chemical burn. I mean, this is nothing more than fertilizer burn. The red in here. And then this one lettuce leaf basil actually survived the dip in temperatures overnight. So I brought her back in and she's starting to green up a little. So hopefully she makes it. We have a red bergamot, which is supposed to be red, the stem anyway, but they're actually also recovering from just being overwatered. And then also being fertilized. It wasn't necessary. Same thing for the catmint as well. So they're all in a little nursery area, which I'm leaving alone. I will only water if absolutely necessary. They will not be touched. And hopefully they bounce back before they go outside. This is the sweet marjoram, which got a haircut. They're also recovering from fertilizer burn. And I actually just completely trimmed them back just to give the roots a little bit of a break, and they actually are starting to put on some new leaves, which is great. So the haircut actually did work, and that actually works for a lot of plants that grow bushy and outward. If you trim them back, it allows for the roots to actually be able to go a little deeper and take in a lot more nutrient. And then I up-potted them to containers with more drainage, and they actually seem to be doing way better. They look a little rough now, but hopefully in a couple of weeks they rectify that. We have some lavender, which is coming back as well. The Tosi had very sparse germination because of the heating mats, and also because the seed might have been a little old. But the ones that did germinate are coming in pretty quick. And then we have this one little surprise bell pepper, which may or may not make it. It's literally right here. The soil was completely, in these containers there was a lot of soil sitting with just random seeds, and it was starting to germinate even though the soil had completely dried out and there was no light. And I saw that it was trying to make it, so I took it from out of here and I just plopped it in some soil, and it's a little yellow. So it's kind of just going to be a miracle plant. I don't really need the space right now, so I'm just going to see if it wants to live. Now if it doesn't want to live, then I'll just use the soil for something else. But I think it might be a bell pepper, and that's the only bell pepper that actually came up. So we'll see if it makes it, and if it fruits, because it's kind of late in the season to be like starting over again with peppers. And then we do have some leeks, which I'm going to put in the raised bed where the salad greens are now, just to see if it can help with the vole population. I was going to do onions, but I had low germination with those just because they were sitting on heating mats. Onions don't need that, but whatever. So we have our leeks here, and the germination on this was amazing. No heating pads, literally just closed the I literally just closed this area so it worked as a heating dome, and just bottom watered. I didn't even spray anything on top, and they are doing amazing. The only problem with this was I dropped it right after I planted the seeds out, and so like it's just weird. Like there's some planted a little deeper than others, and so it's kind of weird. But I'm actually not going to touch these at all until they completely look like they're taking over the area, and then I'll plop them into some smaller containers like these. Or maybe even I'll just take the whole container outside and have it harden off, and then just literally just put them outside and wherever space they're going to fit into, and not even up high here. I might do that, just scoop them out with a spoon and call it a day. And then in this container, which is already starting to fog up, without a heating pad, I'm just not doing that anymore. Even though I have 3. It's kind of a waste of money. But in this one, in this germinating container, we have nothing but peas. So that is 36 peas that I'll put along with trellises. And by the time they're starting to die off, I'll be able to plant my cherry tomatoes and also the pole beans. So it'll be a nice little transition. But we have all King Tut peas, which are just purple potted peas. They don't cook up purple, but they're beautiful on the vine, I can imagine. And then over here in this area, we have some okra, so Jing okra, Go Big okra, our red sunflower, multi-headed sunflower, a mammoth sunflower, which I've only grown once. And the seeds are a little old, so we'll see if they come up. And then we have our collards all the way on the end. And like I said, no heating pads, just a humidity dome. And then when I wrap this, when I completely put the plastic back down over this grow space, the temperatures are retained between 70 and about 90, depending on how hot it is in the house itself. And that should be more than enough for these to germinate within a week or so. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. It is literally freezing outside, so I do have to run back in. But I wanted to show you guys a quick update about the gardens. I hope that your gardens are doing very well and that you are actually starting to prep for the season coming up, i.e. making sure that your garden beds are strong and sturdy, and making sure that you have your compost out if you use it, making sure that you have space ready for the plants that are coming out next month, or however you guys do it. I hope that you've gotten outside, gotten some natural vitamin D, and have taken a walk within your garden spaces, because that alone is enough to clear up any lingering winter blues. But thank you guys so much for watching, and you have a great and wonderful day.